With Nightmare Mode on the horizon and Dr. Xenon's army inching ever closer and closer, the GTA may need a new tank to protect them all, but every last one has been siphoned by her vicious army till only one remained. But fear not, for it was this last surviving XWM that the GTA was able to make a fresh remodel and bring about the last hope there is, our Bastion. Now, it's time to ask, have we found TDX's missing tanker? XWM will now become TDX's most expensive tower by far, before Nightmare at least, turning it into an absolute behemoth of a tower while supporting its allies with strong buffs. Before we get into this concept, Vendetta has made a really great video about resistances as a whole, and I think his solution is the best way to rework XWM and other towers, so I suggest you go check out his video too. And I'd also like to give a massive thank you to Remy, Epiczill, and Kia for helping me expand this XWM rework and balancing it, as I would probably have a pretty hard time balancing it by myself. They will all be in the description below, so please do check their channel out. Thank you to my brother Pent523 and my friend DefKevinJoker1 for helping me balance as well. But with that, let's get into this tanker concept of XWM. There are a few things I'd like to note. XWM's placement limit has now been reduced from 40, 30, 15, and 10 to 12, 7, 5, and 4 for solo, duo, trio, and quad respectively, and you will see why in a minute. The shop cost in the lobby has also gone from 32,000 to 56,000 gold. The rebuild time has been pretty much untouched, but each rebuild reduces XWM's max health by 10% now. The dynamic price scaling has gone from 5,000 to 15,000, but now the scaling is reduced by 1 when an XWM turret fully dies or is sold. And additionally, XWM will not receive the dynamic price scaling penalty if they are not placed within a 7.5 range of each other. I will explain this more once we get into the new passives she will get on 4.2 or 2.4. XWM's passive healing has also been buffed pretty greatly, now healing 1.75% max health per second after not taking damage for 4 seconds. Levels 0 to 2 for both paths remain the same, so we will be first starting out with the top path XWM, going through each upgrade first before going to the bottom path upgrades. Now starting at 3.2 dual miniguns, it will cost $45,800 to upgrade. XWM will now cost a total of 58,600 cash, having 3,250 health, 42 damage, 0.10 fire rate, 38 range, and a total of 420 DPS with the stealth detection that it had before. Moving on to the next upgrade, quad miniguns, it will cost $207,400 to upgrade. XWM will now cost a total of 266,000 cash, having 7,500 health, wielding 120 damage, 0.10 fire rate, 46 range, and a total of 1,200 DPS. Stun immunity has been moved to this upgrade. XWM will also now gain 3 new passive abilities: Taunt enemy attacks, level 1, 20% nearby ally damage mitigation, and 20% nearby ally trauma mitigation, and a shield damage multiplier of 1.15. Taunt works similarly to the bait enemy attacks passive from Scarecrow or the Troll Tower, but it is more effective at baiting enemy attacks. Taunt level 1 cannot taunt insta-kill attacks or attacks that target the most expensive tower. XWM will now have an inner range of 7.5, where towers placed inside get XWM's buffs. Ally damage mitigation reduces damage from all sources by 20%, including max health percent damage and damage over time effects, while ally trauma mitigation will reduce the duration of negative status effects like corruption or stun by 20%. The Eradicator's Rocket Barrage, for example, deals 125 damage and 10% max health damage per missile. The base 125 damage would be reduced to 100, and the 10% max health damage would become 8% instead. Both of these mitigation passives have an outer range around the XWM of 7.5, similar to a dead zone, where towers placed in this epicenter can receive XWM's buffs. Any turrets placed in this range will receive the dynamic cash scaling penalty, whereas turrets placed outside will not receive any increase to the max upgrade price. While the XWM is rebuilding, the ally damage mitigation and the ally trauma mitigation passive will stay active, but the taunt will be disabled. Towers who have the no friendly buffs trait, airborne towers, spawned units, and even other XWMs can receive XWM's passive buffs. With that explained, the final upgrade, now renamed from Super Quad miniguns to retrofit lasers, will cost 254,000 cash to upgrade. XWM now cost a whopping total of 520,000 cash, having 11,125 health, boasting 265 damage, 0.10 fire rate, a range of 57, and a total of 2,650 DPS. The ally damage mitigation reduces damage by 35% now instead of 20%, while the ally trauma mitigation also goes up to 35%. Damage to shield health will also be multiplied by 1.35 times instead of 1.15, and XWM will also have 2 of its 4 miniguns damage type be swapped from bullet to laser, effectively giving it 50% ignore bullet resistance. The taunt level increases to level 2, now being able to taunt all attacks in the game except warship attacks. Now onto the bottom path upgrades. For 2-3, the rocket launcher, it costs 8,000 cash to upgrade. XWM now costs a total of $20,800, has 2,435 health, 84 damage, fires at a rate of 2.5 seconds, has a 42 range, a splash radius of 3, a burst of 4 missiles with a 0.3 second interval, and a total of 98.8 DPS. This level has stayed the same as the previous rocket launcher stats, but now it has more range and will get stealth detection and ignore explosion resistance as well. The next upgrade, missile pods, costs $234,200 to upgrade, and the ignore explosive resistance is now removed. The total cost is $255,000, having 7,100 health, 380 damage, 2.5 second reload time, 72 range, a splash radius of 3, a burst size of 12 missiles with a 0.3 second interval, and a total of 786.2 DPS. Like the quad miniguns upgrade, the missile pods upgrade will also give XWM its respective passive abilities. Taunt level 1, 20% ally damage mitigation, 20% ally trauma mitigation, and 1.25 damage multiplier to shields. The ally buff passives all have a range of 7.5 like before. Stun immunity has been moved to this upgrade. The final bottom path upgrade, Super Missile Pods, costs $327,000 to buy, coming at a grand total cost of $582,200. XWM now has 9,525 HP, 670 damage, a 0.75 second reload time, 92 range, a burst size of 2 with a 0.05 second burst interval, and a total of 1,675 DPS. The ally damage mitigation is now 35% instead of 20%. The ally trauma mitigation goes up to 35%, and the shield damage multiplier is now increased to 1.5 times. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that crazy heck ton of info on the Xenon Whack-A-Mole Turret rework. If you have any questions about the rework concept, I'd love to answer it down in the comments below, as I appreciate any feedback I can get. Now, you might be wondering why XWM is more expensive than Bill Gates' net worth, so let me explain. On release, XWM started out as a fairly decent tower with 810 DPS on the top path. John intended for XWM to be a simple to use tower that kind of acted as a sub DPS unit with roughly the same damage output as Juggernaut, but of course with much worse cost and higher survivability, kinda like a bruiser DPS. You just placed one or two of these bad boys down while focusing the rest on the main DPS. I really like this aspect and I wanted to keep it while making XWM just a bit more interesting to use. This concept re-envisions XWM to be that missing tanker sub DPS, while giving her additional utility to synergize better with other towers instead of acting as a standalone main DPS alternative to Gold Juggernaut. She would be an absolute beast of a tower like TDX's Turret. With recent discussions about XWM and the controversy surrounding her balance changes these last few months, I thought this would be a fun alternative to what XWM is now. I intended for XWM to still keep some relevancy in Expert and lower game modes, but it would shine way more in modes like Endless or Nightmare, which are very hectic with a bunch of tower deaths and attacks from all over the place, which is why I made it so expensive. There's also the fact that I wanted XWM to really feel like a strong tower, as the scale and visuals imply it to be from the concept art. The passive 35% ally damage mitigation would be a great way to keep towers alive while promoting good placement, since XWM takes up a whole lot of space, as you know. The high cost but great cost efficiency of max level XWM, along with the great support it provides, incentivizes you to save up for just one or two of these bad boys. But the dynamic price scaling eventually makes it much less cost efficient, so that you only get a couple of them before focusing on other main DPS. Although I imagine this probably wouldn't be too much of an issue in high economy game modes like Endless. I mentioned earlier that placing turrets outside another turret's passive range will remove the dynamic price scaling penalty, and the intent behind this is to promote more thoughtful placement and to reward you for it. But you still have the option of clumping XWMs together for more survivability and for the fact that XWM can buff each other. It's a trade-off the player has to think about. As for the taunt passive, it would not only bait out threatening attacks, but you can also protect your towers from wide sweeping attacks or status effects like burn. It would also synergize greatly with upcoming towers like the combat medic, the shield tower, and the current medic tower. Placing medic inside XWM's range means it will spend less time healing other medics and focusing on healing your important DPS towers, essentially boosting the healing per second. Or you have the option of placing medic outside the passive range and place your DPS towers next to the turrets. It's all up to you. With how common shield is becoming, XWM's shield damage multiplier is an extra niche I gave to XWM to help sustain its DPS, especially in modes like Endless, the event game modes, and presumably Nightmare, where shields may be more common. XWM has definitely gotten a lot worse for solo loadouts, with the top path max placement limit only offering 31,800 DPS instead of the 44,000 max DPS it had before. But the shield damage multiplier does alleviate that issue a bit. And this is the big downside I gave her for all the utility she got. However, she now is also a really great option for team settings, offering other towers more survivability and ease of use. Things like corruption last less time, meaning players don't have to micromanage certain towers and can focus on other important things during a match. I imagine the new Nightmare mode will be insanely hectic, so even having a few of these turrets can alleviate a lot of the stress across the battlefield. Another thing to consider though is that XWM will be tanking for your other towers and it can't be healed by medic, so this is a pretty hard survivability nerf. To compensate, I decided to buff the passive healing, and honestly, I felt like I could have been way more generous when it came to the health stats. It only takes a minute for the XWM to heal with the new passive buff. However, this also assumes it's not being attacked till then, which is balanced by the fact it has a taunt passive. My initial concept of XWM had 50% ignore bullet resistance, but I eventually scrapped it after John expressed his stance on ignoring resistance in the Discord, though the answer felt very unclear. So I thought that instead of giving XWM 50% ignore bullet resistance, making 2 of the 4 miniguns XWM has into laser type damage could be a good way of keeping that 50% ignore bullet resistance while giving it some counterplay. Instead of nerfing XWM directly, you can add enemies with more laser or bullet resistance, thereby future-proofing XWM, and this wouldn't punish other bullet or laser towers too much if balanced well. I think hybrid damage is a really cool idea that isn't utilized much besides towers like Helicopter or John. I'm sure there's more I've missed too. But with that, that is all I have for this tanker concept of XWM. I hope you really enjoyed it. Massive thanks once again to everyone who helped me balance this concept, as I would have had such a hard time without their help. And thanks to you for watching this far. And again, if you have any comments, feel free to leave them down below. I'm always open to any fun discussions and whatever comments you have. As always, savor the cheese, consume the bread, and be one with the bamboo. See you later. Bye!
今の君からは
無月まだ再生するのか無月
できるものか
That's why he's the GOAT!